On Halloween of 2011, a mother of four was found dead inside of her home. As for who did it, well, it'll absolutely shock you. This is the spooky case of Dawson McGehee. Hello, friend, and welcome to High Time Crime, the Halloween special. My name's Joel, and on here I specialize in true crime and also being in costume at all times. Today, I'm a Ninja Turtle. Tomorrow, not sure. But today, we're going over the case of a very deranged man who was going to absolutely lose it on one of the largest holidays of the year, Halloween night. For our story, we're headed to Manteca, California. Manteca is a city located in San Joaquin County, and in 2011 had a population of exactly 69,315 people. It's a pretty good area with relatively lower crime, but on Halloween night of 2011, that would all change. At around 5:30 p.m. on October 31st of 2011, a young woman named Caitlin went to check on her mother, Kathleen, because she hadn't seen her all day and had already tried to see if she was awake a few times before. A little background about Kathleen is that she was a loving, giving, and compassionate wife and mother of four who had a beautiful smile and warm heart. Well, anyway, Caitlin knocked on her door and called for her several times, eventually getting pretty loud, but still her mother didn't answer. Not knowing exactly what to do, Caitlin then called her brother Justin, who told her to call 911, and she immediately did. A short time after, an ambulance arrived with some first responders, and the door was locked, so they broke the handle off of it. Nobody was prepared for what would be inside of Caitlin's mother's, Kathleen's, bedroom. Kathleen was dead, but it wasn't like she just died of a heart attack or natural causes. Kathleen had been murdered viciously, being stabbed at least 10 times. Now the question here was, who on earth would want this incredibly kind woman dead? Well, let's get to know Kathleen and her family a little more. Kathleen, or better known as Katie Hanson McGehee, was 55 years old and was married to a man named Thomas. Together, they had 4 children, 3 boys and 1 girl, and lived pretty normal lives. Kathleen, or Katie, which I'll refer to her as now, was a very caring woman who worked as an advocate for those treated improperly. Katie was always pouring her life into others and oftentimes cared for others when they really needed someone. She was a caretaker for her brother, who ended up dying of Parkinson's disease, and her sister, who died of a brain tumor. Katie was always pouring her life into others and oftentimes cared for others when they really needed someone. Now, Katie had really started to look after her children, and specifically one of them. Katie apparently treated her children very differently depending on how life was treating them. At this stage of her life, she cared most for her son Dawson because Dawson had started experiencing some pretty serious issues that we'll get into in a moment. Katie started to become very, very protective of Dawson and put him above everything and everyone. She would purposefully avoid any conflict with him to not upset him, but then she began to do victims advocate training. This is someone who is trained to support people who are victims of crimes, traumatic events, and natural disasters. After this training, Katie began to change a bit and became a lot more assertive. She would purposefully say and do little things that might make someone mad or upset because she believed it needed to be said or done. She basically just started to stand up for herself. Now, Dawson in 2011 was 26 years old and nothing appeared to be going right for him. He was born in August of 1985, and not too much is known about his early life. Dawson went to Joshua Cowell Elementary School and eventually Manteca High, where he played football and excelled as a student. Friends remember him as being a smart kid with a great sense of humor who would sometimes do mischievous things to make jokes. Dawson would graduate from high school and then attend the University of the Pacific and then graduate from there in 2009. While he was in college, he was considered to be friendly, energetic, and outgoing, but this all began to change throughout the next 2 years. For whatever reason, Dawson was going through a very awful, bizarre change. He began to become paranoid and anxiety-filled and didn't exactly like to engage in social interaction because of how negative he became. Dawson would eventually move back to his parents' home, and he was very awful to them, especially his mother. He would berate and belittle her, and if Katie decided to speak up for herself, Dawson would immediately stare her down and Katie would just let it go. In 2010, Dawson's very odd behavior would really ramp up. His parents made him go see a psychiatrist, and he complained that he felt anxiety and started having hallucinations. Dawson was then diagnosed with some form of psychotic disorder, and he was prescribed an antipsychotic and antidepressants. About this time, he also started writing in a journal about visions that he was having where Jesus and the Holy Spirit would visit him in different forms. But before long, the visions he was having began to have a dark twist to them, and now he was in his mind being hunted by demons. On one random night, super early in the morning, Dawson showed up to his friend's doorstep wearing pajamas, claiming there were actual demons after him. His friend allowed him to spend the night on the couch, but he said that Dawson looked very out of it. He was twitching around and saying that the demons were physically attacking him, that he was scared and didn't want to go home. Dawson began talking to someone who wasn't there, and he was twitching a lot. After this happened, him and his friends stopped hanging out. But Dawson's bad behavior was really only just beginning. Sometime in 2010, Dawson's older brother Colin was visiting his parents' home. When Colin was there, he said that Dawson would occasionally walk around in the house at night in the dark wearing coveralls and a mask, kind of like Michael Myers from Halloween. That's honestly terrifying, to be honest. But Colin described 2 occasions where this happened. One time, Colin had walked into one of the rooms in his parents' home to find Dawson just sitting there in a mask. Another time, in April, Colin and Dawson had went to see a horror movie together. At first, they sat next to each other, but shortly after the movie started, Dawson just got up and walked away. Colin thought he may have just went to the bathroom, but after he didn't come back for a while, Colin got up and looked around the theater, and that's when he saw Dawson sitting by himself in a completely different row, wearing the mask again. Some time would go by, and in April of 2011, police were called to the McGee's residence because Dawson and his dad got into a very heated argument. Dawson believed his parents weren't able to kick him out of their house without initiating eviction proceedings, but one of the officers told Dawson he could be kicked out of their house at any time. After this, Dawson's behavior became even more demented. It's believed that sometime around this point, he began planning some devious things. Dawson's physical movements also began to be altered in very bizarre ways. His family was used to his mother Katie's brother having Parkinson's disease, and this is similar to how Dawson was acting. He began to display shaking mannerisms and very suddenly. Dawson would look off to the side, talk in a stuttering way, and overall just very antsy. His symptoms, however, would randomly come and go, so it wasn't on set and always, just occasionally. One time, Dawson was reading a children's book to his brother Justin's children, and when he started reading, he was completely fine. No stuttering and no shaking. But as soon as he stopped reading, all of it came back. Dawson, in the beginning of 2011, was somehow working as a music instructor and a server at a local restaurant, but he was fired from both. Now, about 2 months before Halloween, the McGee's only daughter, Caitlin, had just completed her master's degree, and she had to move back home for a little bit. This same time, Dawson went to another psychiatrist, and he said that Dawson was noticeably agitated during his first interview and that he looked very restless, uncomfortable, and was constantly moving. During parts where Dawson and the psychiatrist had to talk about difficult things, apparently Dawson would breathe very heavy and not be able to talk. This doctor diagnosed Dawson as having PTSD and conversion disorder because of his random physical movements. Dawson was still taking his antidepressants at this point, and so the doctor increased the dosage and added another medicine for anxiety. About 2 weeks later, Dawson would go to his final psychiatrist appointment, and it was pretty much the exact same thing as the first. A few weeks would go by, but Dawson was planning to do something terrible. Now, during the week of Halloween 2011, Thomas, Dawson's father and Katie's husband, was away in China on a business trip. He did this pretty frequently. On Friday, October 28th, the McGee's only daughter, Caitlin, was getting ready to go to a weekend church retreat with her good friend Sam. Dawson had actually been a groomsman in Sam's wedding, and they used to be good friends. But when Sam arrived to pick up Caitlin, she noticed that Dawson felt very uncomfortable talking to her. Right before Caitlin left with Sam, she talked to her mother, and they agreed that she would be picked up on Sunday, October 30th. And the plan was for Caitlin to call her mother about an hour before she left so her mom could leave at the same time. 2 days would go by, and on Sunday, October 30th, Katie went to church with one of her sons, Justin, and his family. After church, she called her other son, Colin, and left him a voicemail because he didn't answer. Eventually, Colin called his mother back, and they began talking. Katie was making jambalaya for a potluck the next day, and she needed help on how to use the rice cooker. A potluck is a commercial gathering where each guest or group brings some kind of food item to share with everyone. This event was for Katie's Victims Advocacy Training Program, and her and Colin also talked about how she planned to pick up her daughter that night. Colin said that his mother was in a very good mood when they talked. Now, at about 5 p.m., Caitlin tried calling her mom on the home phone to let her know that she was about an hour away from their meeting point. Katie weirdly didn't answer, and so Caitlin left a message on the answering machine. A few minutes would go by, and all of a sudden she received a call, but from Dawson, and it ended immediately. Caitlin thought that he accidentally tried calling her because he pretty much never called her, so she didn't even try to call him back. Caitlin did start trying to call her mother's cell phone this time, but once again, she didn't answer, and so she left a second voicemail. About a minute would go by when Caitlin started to receive another phone call from, yet again, Dawson. He said that he was just calling to see how she was, and Caitlin told him that she was trying to call their mom on the home phone. Dawson replied by saying that he thinks the home phone hasn't really been working lately. Caitlin then said she also tried calling her mother's cell phone, and Dawson told her that he doesn't think that's been working either, and that she's been having trouble with both of the phones. Caitlin was a little concerned, but brushed it off and asked Dawson if their mom was home, and she needed to find out if she was still picking her up. Dawson then got an attitude with Caitlin and told her that he wasn't home, and so she asked him if their mom had asked him to pick her up, but he told her their mother didn't. Caitlin found this entire conversation very creepy because Dawson never randomly called her, ever. A few minutes would pass and Caitlin would yet again call the home phone, leaving another message. About an hour had went by at this point, and at about 6 p.m., Caitlin was very close to the place where she was supposed to meet her mother. She called her 3 more times on the house phone and 1 more time on her cell phone, leaving another message. After leaving the last message, about 2 minutes would pass, and once again, Dawson called her. This time, he said, "Oh, you know what? We actually sort of talked about that. Like, maybe we had talked about maybe I could come pick you up." He also said how their mother was kinda tired that day, and so Caitlin was like, whatever, and had Dawson pick her up. Some more time would pass, and Dawson arrived to the meeting point and picked Caitlin up. When he started driving back, he told her that he needs to run some errands and pick up his medicine, aka the good old green. During this drive, Dawson was incredibly social and kinda seemed like his old self. He was actually in a good mood, seemed cheerful, and he was very talkative. Dawson told Caitlin that their mother was doing great on her recent diet she picked up, and she's lost 21 pounds in the past 4 weeks, but she's been acting very tired lately. Caitlin had mentioned to Dawson that her lips were chapped, and so he offered to take her to a store to get some medicine. This shocked Caitlin because Dawson was very off-putting to everyone for the past 2 years and never did anything for anyone. Dawson took her to a Walgreens, and Caitlin went inside to get what she needed and then went back to the car. When she got to it, Dawson was not in the car. Caitlin, confused, then went back inside the store and found Dawson pacing back and forth in one of the aisles. Once they left the Walgreens, they stopped somewhere to get some food and ate in the car on the way to pick up Dawson's stuff. Dawson started driving, but after nearly an hour of driving up and down the same exact streets, his sister Caitlin asked him if he knows where he's going, and he said, yeah. Eventually, he parked at a restaurant that was about a minute away from the Walgreens. He told Caitlin it seems a little strange, but his mom knows he's done this before and that he has to go by himself. About 20 minutes would pass, and Dawson returned, and he said that he threw up on the way. He then drove himself and Caitlin back to their parents' home and arrived at about 11 p.m. Caitlin put her bags into the bedroom and went to the bathroom, where Dawson abruptly stopped her. He told her that their mom was asleep, and Caitlin was a bit confused because it was pretty late, and she kinda assumed that already. Caitlin then went to the bathroom and returned to her room, but a few times throughout the night, she left her room and would find Dawson just pacing back and forth in the hallway. The next morning would come, and by the time Caitlin got up and left her room, Dawson was already awake and immediately walked up to her. He asked her if she got his messages, and she told him she didn't because her phone died. Dawson told her that he texted her to tell her that their mother got up at about 5 to 6 a.m. and told him she didn't sleep well, so she'd be staying in bed all day. Caitlin was again very concerned over this, and so when Dawson stepped outside for a bit, she went to investigate. Caitlin knocked on her mother's door and tried calling out for her, but she didn't hear anything. So she tried to open the door, but then found out that it was locked. She then started knocking a bit louder and tried calling out for her mother again, but still nothing. After this, Caitlin walked outside to try and look into the window of her mother's room, but the blinds were completely closed. She started to feel paranoid, but didn't want to, and felt like there was no reason for Dawson to be lying, so she decided to just go back to her bedroom. Some time would go by and Caitlin had to go to the bank and take care of something, and Dawson told her that their mother made a request that he take her. On the ride there, Dawson was once again acting like his old self, super cheerful, happy, and very talkative. Once Caitlin got finished at the bank, Dawson asked her if she needs to go anywhere else and blurted out something about Target. Caitlin said that she doesn't need to go and asked Dawson if he needs to go. He told her he doesn't really need to go anywhere, but they could go to Target just for fun to walk around. Caitlin, again very confused, told him they could stop by the AT&T store for her to get a charger. The store was on the way back to their house, but Dawson suggested to her that they go to a different store, much further from the house. Eventually, they returned home and Caitlin decided to go have some lunch with a friend, and when she got back home a bit later in the day, Dawson was nowhere to be found and her mother was still not out of bed. Caitlin decided enough is enough, that she wants to see her mother. So at around 5:30 p.m., Caitlin began knocking on her door and calling for her very loudly. After receiving no response, Caitlin called her older brother, Justin, and he told her to call 911, so she did.
911. Hi, my mother has been in her room with the door locked. She's not responding when I knock on the door, and she's diabetic and prone to sleep apnea. I'm just worried something's wrong with her. Okay.
As you are already aware, Katie was found murdered inside of her bedroom with multiple stab wounds, but nothing was taken. In other various locations, police found a bloody mask resembling that of Michael Myers and a bunch of other evidence. A few hours would go by, and at about 1:25 a.m. the next morning, or Tuesday, November 1st, Dawson McGehee was arrested after being pulled over. One of the detectives who literally just left the homicide scene was the first one who spotted his vehicle, which matched descriptions given by witnesses. Dawson was taken into custody without incident, and he didn't appear to be intoxicated or under the influence of anything, but he did attempt to appear delusional. The police interrogated him, and this is how he acted.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm okay, how are you doing?
I'm all right, how are you? Okay. I'm Detective Miller, this is Detective Barbacino. We've got some stuff we want to talk to you about. We want to talk to you about what happened to your mom.
What happened to my mom?
Well, you tell me.
People called me and said something happened at home to Mom. They were very bad.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to my mom?
Well, that's what I'm asking you.
I was waiting for my brother and sister to tell me.
Okay. Well, so, was your sister home this weekend?
Wait, I'm supposed to have an attorney?
If you want one.
Am I supposed to have I should request an attorney.
Well, that's up to you if you like one. But, I mean, we'd like to talk to you.
You're supposed to have an attorney. Go and ask him. I would offer, I would ask for an attorney.
You want to ask for an attorney?
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. All right. Well, you know what? Then I can't bring an attorney right here, right now. So what's going to happen is, in a little while, you're going to get booked out at the county jail, and you'll go into court, and then they'll appoint an attorney for you. So I'm going to have you sit right here for a few minutes until we can get you processed, okay?
What did they say happened to my mom?
Okay. Then at this point, I'm done talking to you. I can't talk to you anymore about the case because you told me that you want an attorney here.
Oh, okay.
All right. If you change your mind about that and you decide you want to talk to me, you need to, let me know or let one of the officers here know. Okay?
When can we talk with? When can we talk with an attorney?
So you'll go to court and you'll be appointed an attorney, and from there it goes through the court process, and it's kind of out of my hands from there as far as when or if we can sit down and talk. Okay?
Oh, okay.
All right, I'm going to be right back.
Dawson was just pretending to be crazy and had clearly been planning his mother's murder for a pretty long time. During this night, he dressed up almost exactly like Michael Myers in a mask and coveralls, and he viciously took his mother's life for no reason. Dawson McGehee is a monster, and he started manifesting that long before. He was sentenced to 16 years to life in prison, and we can only hope that he never sees the outside again. His father said that all Katie ever did was give, and that Dawson would only and always take and manipulate, take and deceive, take and subvert, take and lie, take and fake, take and take. That he was a predator and his mother was his prey, which is so upsetting. Kathleen, or Katie McGehee, was a very kind woman who was doing all she could to look out for everyone, especially her son. She had just recently started taking classes and training to stand up to him. On her last day, her and Dawson got into an argument, and she demanded he move out of the house. This is what most likely set him off for it to be that day, but regardless, Katie didn't deserve that, and I hope she's resting peacefully. But anyways, thank you for watching this episode of High Time Crime. If true crime is your thing, then please subscribe and hit the like button because that's all we do. Another thing is that recently I started an all-exclusive Patreon. Here, you're given the choice of 3 tiers, and the last one allows for a Patreon-only video that's uncensored. That and the second tier allow you to have your name at the end of each High Time Crime video. This is just in case you want to support me a little further. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care, friend.